Evan McDermod, how's it going?
It's going good, Jack. Thanks for having me on your podcast. How are
Yeah,
you?
yeah, really good. Really good today. I haven't really eaten much today, so I feel
Oh,
a bit
okay.
tired. I'm stupid. I got wrapped up with work today, and
Don't
yeah,
faint on me.
no, no. Yeah. So quick one. I'm really excited to get you on the show. As I came across some of your meditation content on YouTube,
Hmm.
things to do with mindfulness and I like the power of smile stuff you put out.
Oh, yeah.
And then I noticed you had a podcast called, is it The Fifth
Yes.
Dimension?
Yes, the fifth
And
dimension.
yeah, I've been really excited to get you on and discuss your meditation journey from when you first was exposed to it, essentially, if
Uh-huh.
that's the word,
Yeah.
and how it changed your life, and how in which you see it could potentially add a lot of value to other people's lives who hasn't really given the practice much
Yeah.
thought. So do you want to sort of begin by sort of introducing yourself and tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about you?
So I mean, yeah, I'm Evan McDermott. I mean, I'm a teacher. That's sort of like my trade by day, I guess you could say. The podcast is very much my like creative outlet. I love engaging in mindfulness and meditation and just doing a lot of promoting self-actualization and free thinking and just getting people to be the best versions of themselves. I'd say my purpose is in helping people reach their potential, however that is, through teaching, through meditation, mindfulness. So I mean that kind of sums me up. If you want, like just sort of the basics. I mean, we can go in depth on all that, but that really sums me up in like an elevator speech, I guess you could say.
Yeah, yeah, perfect, perfect. What when did you first get into meditation, and what made you sort of start looking into it and thinking, I'm gonna give this a go, see what happens?
Yeah, it's interesting. I first got into like the idea of uh, I'll say like for most of my life, I mean, I'm only 24, but a lot of like my first 21 years on this planet, I just lived life very unconsciously, I guess you
Mm.
could say, just sort of going through the motions, not really having a sense of self. And I don't think I even realized that. Like that's just sort of like I just sort of went along with everything that's going on externally around me. And I took this psychology class um, in college, and it was like a class that you travel down to Costa Rica, which is very much like a mindful, conscious place. It's a beautiful country, and we talked a lot about self growth and looking inwards and all of these like self development practices. I went in thinking like because it was intro to counseling. I think I went in thinking like, oh, maybe I can pick up some tips on how to like counsel students and like sort of be more of an advocate for people. But it
Mm.
really like uprooted my entire foundation of self and really got me looking inwards. And ever since then, it's sort of been a journey of trying to engage more in mindfulness practices and meditation. And, for a while, I would say I would meditate more. Like when I first started, I would meditate more on a needs basis as opposed to doing it now I
Mm.
do it every day when I wake up for, I'll do some breath work and then meditation for 20 minutes. But when I first started, I would only sort of do it when I need it. So I would build up to like, oh, I'm feeling really, really anxious or really,
Mm.
over just not great. And so I would meditate and feel better. But I've gotten to the point where it's like, I know that if I do it every day, I can be much more mindful and conscious throughout my day. And it's just been a journey, man. I'm still learning new things about meditation and myself. Like every time I practice, like it's never the same.
Mm.
And it's something that's definitely changed my life for the better in a lot of ways. I mean, there's been so many benefits that I've noticed, and I mean, I'm sure you could speak to that with yourself as well. Like
Yeah, of course, of course.
just the benefits of it's just
Mm,
tremendous.
I quite liked the way in which you said that you were living more of an unconscious life before you
Mm,
discovered meditation, and I've never really had it conceptualized like that, but I could completely attest to that. It kind of felt like I was kind of like living someone else's story.
yeah.
Society gives you a bunch of things that you're supposed to value, a bunch of
Hmm.
behaviors that you're supposed to adhere to, and you become sort of absorbed by like the kind of the matrix, as it were, and that
Exactly.
is very difficult to identify as your actual self when everything around you is shaping you who you are, your ego. And I
100%.
know people hate that word, but it's straight up correct.
100%.
As you grow up, especially as young people, you develop this sense of idea of yourself based on your experience. So someone with a traumatic childhood is going to have a very different set of behaviors and values, and someone who had a lovely childhood is going to have an extremely different set of behaviors and values,
Right.
and their habits will reflect on that. And you know, I was very, I don't know, I was just kind of valuing the wrong things. I was all
Yeah.
money and career and, race
That's
to the
what we're
top. And
taught. That's what we're
I
taught to
know, yeah,
value.
exactly. So I was so career focused. And I remember when I landed this amazing job in Switzerland, I was like 24. I'm 30 now. And, it was a six-figure salary. It was big,
Hmm.
and I was living like a idiot, and I
The
was
king
young.
lifestyle,
Exactly. No, no,
huh?
exactly. And it was cool. And then I left because the company was like, I didn't agree with, they were kind of scamming people, but I don't want to get into it too much.
Yeah.
And so I left. I went traveling and stuff like that, and I was like, fuck, like I need to do something. This process of racing to the top, trying to value things and money more, and starting to do something. So I traveled a bunch. And I always had I was always frustrated. I always had a bit of an anger problem growing up. I always have a short temper. I still do, but it's way better. But since discovering meditation and various mindfulness practice, holy hell,
Yeah.
absolutely changed my life forever, quite significantly, like
Absolutely.
dramatically. And
It uproots the foundation, like we were
yeah,
saying.
of course, it's almost like you become brand new in a sense.
Yeah.
And that's scary to a lot of people. I mean, one of my absolute closest friends in the world who I got into meditation with me um, recently actually told me that he was actually nervous and he considered not getting into it because he was worried that it was going to completely change his reality,
Oh
and that
yeah.
he didn't know what things he wasn't or what weren't going to be into. Um, but it just made him super patient and
Yeah.
more, just more of a equanimous life, really,
Absolutely.
full
And
of
well,
clarity and stuff.
the thing is, I think a big part of it is we're taught to fear the unknown of what's going to come with change. But I
Yeah.
mean, if you think about it, life is just a continuous series of change, anyways. So,
Mm,
we sort of have to just with meditation, you sort of learn. A big thing that I've noticed for myself is I less worry about, like, I used to always be very anxious, and I used to be very, I would say, timid and quiet. Like, I
mm.
didn't have like my own voice per se, which is funny because now I have a podcast and I speak like it sort of gained like a sense of assertiveness within myself
Mm,
that was truly always there. It just was shut down by my conditions and by what
mm,
I was taught. But we very much fear change. We fear unknown. We always want to have comfort in a sense of however that's going to look, whether it be, a comfortable job or money. And, I'm sure there was a sense of restlessness in the decision to leave that, like, the job you talked about,
mm,
because there's, not to speak for you, I don't like speaking for people, but, just because, like, with it comes certain comforts that you have from it, and certain, like, we attach ourselves to our external circumstances, like
mm,
that's what
of
we're
course.
ingrained to do. So um and it's interesting, I haven't had the experience so much of being attached to like career and money. Like, I've never really cared about that too much. I remember when I was maybe 11 or 12 years old, and I never knew why this stuck with me until a year or two ago, like a couple of years ago, when I first really started diving deep inward. But my dad told me a story of a coworker that he had who was, their son actually committed suicide, and he was like 19. He was in college, and the reason he committed suicide was he did not want to live in the world of, that expected, like, role we're supposed to play, right? Get a job you don't like, follow this pro- projected path. And when I heard that story, it was really chilling because I had that same thought, like, wow, I really don't want to just, I guess, be another corporate slave, or be a,
Mm,
just, you could say all you want about that conditioned path most people take. And, for a lot of people, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, it provides comfort. It provides a lot of benefits, but at the same time, that idea really scared me. It's like, I want to live my own life.
Mm,
And so I think I was always sort of looking for the answer as to like, how can I escape the lack of control of my own life, I guess. And certainly you can't control your external circumstances. Things happen, but with like meditation, it gave me the perspective to um, look inward and trust in myself to sort of
mm,
create my own reality and not rely on the world to
mm,
create the reality for me. And like,
mm.
so it puts you into like almost a creator entrepreneurial mindset,
Yeah.
which I think is important.
And I think that what the way in which it does that, and I can only speak from my experience, was, I when I left my job, I came back and I started working for myself, and I
Yeah.
began a digital marketing agency. And it was kind of fine to begin with. I was plodding along, got a few clients, and then it was growing, and then it was growing, and then I was just consumed by it.
Yeah.
Like every single minute of every single day, I was thinking about who's paid, who's not paid, getting super angry. People weren't paying for months. I'm like, how am I going to pay my bills? And then the blame game happened, and then I'm just spiraling and spiraling and spiraling and spiraling and spiraling. And it was kind of a bit of a nightmare, in terms of my mental health and how I was sort of taking that out into my personal life and just complaining all the time about it, to my friends and to my family. And then when I got into meditation, what it done was it sort of allowed me to sit outside of capitalism and look
Mm.
in inwards. It was
Yeah.
almost like, instead of being a pawn on the chessboard, I was controlling the entire table.
Right.
Um, and I could kind of look into my situations from the outside in, as if I was giving advice to a friend.
Right.
And that's kind of what meditation, and that's clarity, isn't it, at the end of the day?
Yeah.
And that was, I think, the most valuable thing in terms of what meditation gave to me, to be able to perform in this world very differently to how I was before. And I kind of feel like it gave me way less of a need to rely on my business's growth and my personal economy to make me happy, because I knew if all that failed, which we'll go into in a minute because it did, COVID, um, I wouldn't care that much. And so it
Yeah.
kind of released all of these anxieties and stresses that I had of owning your own business. So then I found myself sort of firing clients. I'd be like, "No, you're done." And I wasn't worried about it. I was chasing invoices, which
Hmm.
would stress me before. And I was like, I don't care, because I seen it as this separate part of my life. And that's what meditation done. It broke down each individual thing I valued, and it was a separate thing. It was no longer who I was. It was just a
Yeah.
thing that I partake in, I dip in and out of, to make work for me.
Absolutely.
And that was an extremely eye-opening thing that meditation done for me. And then COVID happened. I lost 95% of my clients anyway, so it was all for
Right.
nothing. And but I'm growing again. But the good thing is, through lockdown, I had no work to do, so I just meditated all the time, man. It was
Right.
amazing. Yeah,
100%.
exactly. And then,
It's
of
like a
course,
sabbatical.
yeah,
Like,
exactly, a spiritual sabbatical.
it's,
And yeah, so I feel I think that's how it sort of helps people,
yeah. And
give them
everybody's
that.
going to have different
Yeah.
experience, but it's a lot of times that similar theme of
Yeah,
like,
I mean, what you said about, it gives people like an entrepreneurial type feeling. I think it's just because before, if before I meditated, I was like, I have these dreams and ambitions. I want to start up this business, but
yeah.
I was like, how? I don't know what to do. I'm so impatient. I'm so impulsive.
Yep.
I got that entrepreneurial mindset from just slowing down, having a bit of patience, and heightened clarity on what I wanted
Yeah.
to do. And that's what meditation does for a lot of people.
Absolutely. And it eliminates that fear of the unknown. Because
Yeah.
especially when when you start up a business and, like, for example, when I started up my podcast, I was like, I called it brainstorming for however long, 4 or 5 months. But I think
Mm.
a lot of it was more of just procrastination and fear. Like I'm a true believer. Everything happens at the time it's supposed to happen. So I'm glad I started it when I did. But I think a lot of times we will fail. We don't want to take that leap. And when I started like when I actually took the steps to start the podcast and really bring it to what I wanted it to, it was because was meditating more regularly. Like every
Mm,
day I was getting that heightened sense of clarity, heightened sense of self, and just trusting that if it fails, it doesn't matter. At least I tried. Like
mm,
it's just sort of going for it. So I think it gives you just uh, this mindset that I feel like that's already there, and the talents are already there. Like the creative abilities are already inside of us. We just really locked them away.
mm.
It's like it's not valued in our society enough. And I'll tell you, from a teacher's standpoint, we don't bring out those qualities enough. Like I would love to find ways. Like I look for ways to try and like bring that out. But there's so many standards we need to teach, and so many different
Mm.
just a bunch of the crap you could go into with education. But
Yeah, yeah.
it's I don't think we teach enough of the like trusting your inner self, trusting your abilities, just
Mhm.
going for it,
Yeah.
and
There's this very strange thing that's kind of taken over the concept of meditation, is
yeah,
that it's seen as spiritual woo-woo fluffy crap, you know?
right,
And a battle that I'm having at the moment is kind of conceptualizing why the fuck society is ramming uh, chemicals down people's throats who are feeling depressed and anxious, right? And I'm sure that's
yeah,
it's, the topic
oh
that's
yeah,
been raveling around your head for a while.
oh yes,
Because I don't think it's happening by accident. The people of power and authority are super smart. It's how they got there. They have a very good grasp on how the world works and how reality is
yes,
structured, but still, like, proactively doing some really dumb shit for people with poor mental health. And it's very difficult when once you discover meditation and you practice for a while and you proper get into it and you feel these dramatic differences, positive changes that it's given you. All of a sudden, you want to tell everyone about it who's posting on Facebook that their mental health is in the toilet.
yeah,
And so, like, the other day, someone on Facebook, I don't really know very well. My Facebook's full of people I don't know, I guess. And they were saying about how they can't get a doctor's appointment to get stronger antidepressants or something, or anti-anxiety pills because of lockdown. I'm like, oh fuck, I have to send them this meditation course. I at least have to, right?
yeah,
And soon I send this course and I mentioned, look, you may as well try. Meditation will really help. um and they've messaged back saying, well, I think I've got PTSD. I don't think this can help.
mm,
And I'm just like, you know nothing about it.
right,
You already,
yeah,
like, and this is the problem. And it's because I got into discussion with them, and they thought it was just this spiritual, religious, weird thing. And actually, meditation is just sitting down, observing your thoughts, and taking the power back, taking the control back, and understanding that you aren't your thoughts, and
exactly.
taking a little bit more control and finding stillness. What on earth is remotely mystical about that?
Right. I know 100%. And the thing, it's been around for thousands of years, and it's very much included in a lot of, um, I guess you could say, religious traditions. Like you could call prayer in Christianity
Mm,
meditation, right? It's very much a um, similar concept. And we have, obviously, Buddhism meditation is huge, and so it gets sort of intertwined. And there's a lot of spiritual directions you could take meditation, and like
mm,
so I definitely see where it gets
yeah, yeah. Well, and I've done
that
it. I mean,
stereotype. Yeah,
I've had Kundalini experiences.
me
I've
too.
had
Yeah,
some, yeah, I've had some wild fucking times meditating, but
yeah,
that's not the norm. I mean,
yeah.
maybe like 2% of the times, if we're lucky.
Right.
And
Seriously.
and how do we? I mean, you're a teacher.
Yeah.
I'm now teaching meditation on my YouTube channel, on my guided meditation course. How do we, as we're the next generation of meditators, essentially, and we are potentially, if we keep creating our content and doing things right, the next influencers in the meditation field. If we keep doing what we're doing in the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years,
Yeah.
we can play a part in that global consciousness project of raising everybody's vibration and being a part of it, but in a non-preachy way,
Yeah.
because that's why really it's got its bad name, is from other religious habits being enforced and
Yeah.
pressed on everybody else. How do we get more people meditating whose egos are saying, nah bruv, don't need this? How's
And
that possible, man?
that's the $1 million question. But I think honestly, it comes with like I think a big part is comes with early introduction of it. Honestly, I think
Mm,
looking at it from like the education standpoint, I've seen an introduction of mindfulness and meditation begin to take place in schools. Like they actually do have somebody I know actually wrote a book. I might have it on me. Yeah, it's right over here. It's a children's book. It's called, I don't know if you can, Breathing Makes It Better. I know it's backwards on the camera,
breathing
but
makes it. No, it's actually the right way around for me.
yeah. Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
It's a book for sad days, mad days, glad days, and all the feelings in between. And essentially, it's a children's book about meditation and conscious awareness and just presence, being, learning the art of meditation as a child. So I think we're seeing a larger push to see it integrated early on. So you can, because once you get introduced to it properly, once you're able to get past the ego, and really the ego is just, a lot of times I try not to even get like upset with you can't really get upset with people's egos, or because
Hmm.
really it's a defense mechanism. They've built that up because they have experienced certain
Mm,
experiences in the past, whether it be trauma, and so it's a defense mechanism to protect what they know about themselves. And like that idea of you know meditation sort of transforming your life, if they hear that, that's going to be something that's really scary. But I
mm,
think introducing it in a way, especially somebody, let's say, who is older and not in school, like, because I think there's a lot of people who are in their 20s and their 30s who could really benefit from meditation, introducing it in a way as something that is going to help with anxiety, help with,
hmm,
it's a practice for calming. It's a practice to, really just be in the moment and
mm.
try and understand yourself a little bit deeper,
Yeah.
and just really, I think if you can sort of change the perception of what it does, and just be open and transparent and say, for me, I've had all these benefits. For you, maybe you'll have something different. Like it's going to be different for everybody, but just go into it with an open mind and an open heart. And I promise you'll see some sort of
Mm,
benefit unique to
mm.
you,
Yeah.
and just practice with consistency. So I think it's just about changing that stereotype. And I think we are. I really think we are. Maybe it's just
Mm.
the circle I surround myself with. Sometimes I wonder if like
Yeah.
like we have sort of a
Well, yeah, it's not
uh,
like you're going down the local pub on the docks, is it?
right,
And going to all the
right.
old boys. Do you fancy popping outside and having a quick meditation with me? I'd be like, what, get the fuck out of here.
Right. If I were to do that, then I'd this is my ego speaking, that like, yeah, we're changing the perception, like no, that but I think we're moving, like, with all the online resources we got too, like YouTube, and we, people putting out guided meditations. Yeah, I mean, you
Mm,
could look up guided meditation for sleep, guided meditation for anxiety, for depression,
mhm,
for self-love, and you could get into all the spiritual concepts for uh transcending and enlightenment. And there's
mm,
just so much you could explore with it. I think when you get that like introduction and giving people the opportunity to explore it like personally and individually without trying to enforce a particular agenda around it,
mm.
that's what's going to get people to at least give it a try,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, yeah. What worked with my friends was, I don't know, I got a really, really close friend group.
Mhm.
So, and most of them really just any computer game I recommend, they all jump on it. They're all very open minded, And
Yeah.
for me, it was them seeing the change in me, which was like, oh, I want a piece of this. I want a piece of this.
Mm.
And so that was quite easy. There are some other people in my life that, very close to me that I really want to get into meditation, because like
Yeah, me as well.
it's like I can just overwhelmingly see how good it's going to be for them,
Hmm.
not only for their day-to-day well-being, but their bigger picture stuff. And every time kind of the word ego is mentioned, people take that as egotistical, like you're just a dickhead, and it's like, that's
Hmm.
not. The ego is just you, the opinion you have of yourself based
Yeah.
on your experience of being on this planet.
Yeah.
And so, um, someone who's untrusting of people, have had people break their trust, you know,
Exactly.
and now they're an untrusting person. They weren't born like that. It was their experience that made them like that. And you know what? That is what leads to uh, a heightened sense of compassion from long-term meditation practice, because you start
Yes.
realizing that all these people you've been blaming for stuff or treating you badly, or shaming you or letting you down or betraying you, is they're just living their life by their experience.
Exactly.
There other people have made them like that, other circumstances in their life have made them like that, and when you realize that, okay, I no longer have to live my life by my experience, because you're connected to your inner self and you're just purging all of that bullshit that, created that strong egoic entity in yourself. You start realizing that that's the same for every other motherfucker out there you've been getting angry
Yep.
at, and you have
Yep.
compassion for them. I'm like, fuck.
Exactly.
It's beautiful. Can you imagine if everyone was doing this? If everyone had this awakening, as they call it,
Yes.
where it's like, oh wow, he was a dick because he was obviously treated like an asshole.
Right.
I should have compassion for this guy, instead of feeding the machine of hatred and frustration and blame.
Exactly. I mean, it would completely change the structures of society. And like,
Mm,
there's no doubt about it, because I feel like a lot of our world is built around, like, there's a lot at the higher ups that very much benefit off of division and hatred and a lack of seeing ourselves in one another. And I would say one of the greatest tools that I've gained from meditation is exactly what you talked about, in empathy, and the ability to see myself even when somebody might say the most hurtful, painful things I've heard in a long time. It's like, you know what? I understand exactly where you're coming from. So I'm not going to get angry. I'm
mm,
going to respond with a sense of compassion and mindfulness. And, you know, I think that would, we talk about, like, people mention like world peace and like that's pie in the sky and like it's, it all, but that is what you would achieve, because if every single person had that
mm,
awakening, then
mhm,
there wouldn't be the need to there wouldn't be violence, there wouldn't be dominating anger, and
mm,
there wouldn't be so much fear. So it would completely change the structure of what we
mm.
prioritize, what we I think we'd solve issues like hunger, like poverty, because we'd have compassion for
Yeah.
the people in those situations. Like,
Mm.
we wouldn't, it would be unjust to leave those people behind. Like, how do we build
Yeah,
this
yeah,
up? How do we
yeah, yeah.
build people up? So
Yeah, it definitely makes you more sensitive, and it does change your perception
yes.
on the world. If something, governments or big states or the deep state or whoever really runs everything, um,
Yeah.
who fucking knows? That's all a bit up in the air at the
Yep.
moment. Um,
I was gonna say, if you start mentioning them, you might get taken off YouTube. But
yeah, um, the society at the moment controls the perception of everybody, through
yes.
news, through multiple streams of information, through education system, through the science community, through just wherever everyone gets their information from. The people who are in control of that information aren't only in control of the perception of people, they're now in control of their behavior. Because if you can control the perception of a population of people, you can control their behavior. If you control
Yes.
the population's behavior, you control the motherfucking world.
Yes.
You can get them to do whatever you fucking want, fight in wars, spend their money on certain things, vote for certain people, hate certain races, and, argue and fight other countries and stuff. And
Yes.
before, like growing up in my 20s and mid 20s, and, I was always like, immigrants, man. No
Hmm.
way, no, they're a problem. Because I
And
had grown up watching the mainstream media tell me how much of a problem they are.
right.
I was just believing in somebody else's narrative, and it became my own. And I thought it was my own. I thought it was my own opinion. It was not my own opinion. It was just given to me. And I'm like, yeah, sweet, I'll roll with that. Because that's what
Right.
humans do. We're bloody sheep, especially when you're young. We just sponges, man. We just absorb everything. And
Right.
so, got into meditation, grew some compassion and all this good stuff. And then all of a sudden, I've never watched the mainstream media, like ever.
Me neither.
But I've been on spending probably too much time on Twitter at the moment, and that's an absolute swamp. But like
Yep.
I was seeing very recently, some UK reporters on Sky News, you know, they were on the immigrant bandwagon again, them coming over from France, from Calais to Dover, and they're
Mm,
literally filming. They're on like this proper nice boat, and they're filming these guys coming into the country on a dinghy, as a few women and children and a few men and whatnot.
mm.
And they're super close to this dinghy, and they're trying to reach over. Mate, it's so comical. They're trying to reach over with a microphone and say, like, "Are you okay?" Like waving at
Mm.
them, like, "Are you okay?" Trying to get some words, and then they turn back to the camera saying, "You can see this immigration crisis is such a problem, you know." Are you fucking
Oh
kidding me?
my
It's like a
gosh.
spectacle, you know. And
Yeah.
the problem is that just reminded me of the stuff that I used to watch as a kid that convinced me to think that they are bad. And what meditation allowed me to realize is these motherfuckers have a shit experience of being human,
Yeah.
you know?
100%.
And, you know, we should be, it was luck that you were born wherever you were born and wherever I was born or whatever. It may not be luck. Maybe we chose it. Who knows?
Right.
You know, and so why should we be hating and blaming these other people who were trying to make a better life for themselves? Dude, if I was born in Syria, I've just had a baby, a 6-month-old baby. If I was them in Syria, dude, I'd be fucking swimming across that with them on my
Yeah.
back. You
100%.
know, and anyone who says they wouldn't be is lying to themselves. And
Exactly.
they are just cucks for the matrix of the information that they've been fed over the years. And what meditation allows you to do is pop outside of all that crap and think for yourself.
Yes.
And that's a scary concept for people, because when they start realizing, oh, I am
Everything
who
they
I
know is
am.
false.
I am not necessarily false, but everything they know isn't unique to their
Right.
own research. It's what they've been indoctrinated to believe. It's just like if you were born in Iran, you'd most definitely be a Muslim. So would I. I mean, if we were born
Right.
in maybe Thailand, central Thailand, we'd probably be Buddhist.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
and that wasn't our inner selves choosing this. You know, we didn't.
Right.
That's our egos being structured and built up by society. And I feel that the more people can focus on thinking about other people's experiences and how that's making them feel and how that's creating the people that they become, we'll get global compassion and everybody can start healing properly.
Yes.
And I'm not sure, do you see that happening? Is there hope for
Oh,
something like this happening?
I really think so. I think more people are starting to take this perspective that you just talked about, looking past our conditioning
Hmm.
and embodying this sort of higher perspective to realize, where we come from, where others come from, because we're in such an age of information, because of the resources that are available online at our fingertips. There's a lot of issues with censorship right now and with sort of the suppression of some free thinking ideas, but all the information is out there for people to find. So I think more people are wait I see I try not to take an optimistic view. I don't take a pessimist. I just try and view things as it is from my perspective. And I see more people, I think, taking this perspective, because I have people asking me about, particular my like I'm less active on Twitter. I'm more active on Instagram, and I'll post about a variety of things in terms of, whether it's meditation or whether it's about
Mm.
this idea of awakening and free thinking. And I have a lot of people asking me about that, trying to sort of develop, I would say, into that mindset themselves. And I think there's more people who are willing to do it because there's more people sharing about it. But I also see a larger push for the structure, like the structure that exists right now, where we are fed our information, where we're fed our identities, we're fed all of the things that were, that you mentioned, that were that really construct our lives. I think we're
Mm.
seeing a harder push for that at the same time, because more people are realizing it's complete
Mm.
bullshit, because it's not
Yeah,
real.
yeah. I
So
100% agree. And
so
that's a go on, sorry, keep going.
I was just gonna say, when that structure itself is challenged, the structure is like a living symbiotic organism in itself. Like, it's been built up to the point that it knows when it's being challenged. So we see this larger fight back against it. And what that's going to look like, a year from now, 2 years from now, it's
Mm.
hard to exactly know, but it's almost sort of feels like a race against, like, all right, we need to continue on this path and help, just keep going with the flow of it and
Yeah.
trusting that we're,
Yeah. Society
making a
tries to
difference.
bite back when people wake up, The
Yeah.
more people who meditate and wake up, Kim Kardashian's just going to get her ass out more,
Yeah. Yeah.
Nicki Minaj is just going to twerk in your face a little bit more. And,
Yeah.
but that's a kind of a very interesting path to go down. And, I've seen a lot of theories. I'm sure you have
Oh,
floating around
yeah.
the internet. It can be a very wild place sometimes.
Yes.
But I feel like the people in control, whoever they are, they
They,
have
them.
they have a feel they have a distinct responsibility on themselves to keep us valuing the things that give them more power and wealth. So
Yes.
that's feeding the economy, feeding shares in certain businesses, and the way in which they create that demand is through societal change.
Yes.
And a lot of people think that we've built our society and we've built our values, but we haven't. No. That's not something we've done ourselves. And everybody likes to think that all of their ideas and behaviors are their choice. And
Right.
many movies have been made on that, many series and many computer games as well. And but something I'm finding really interesting at the moment is how the mainstream media and social media influencers and celebrities can just fuel any mass movement they want. I
Yes.
don't remember anyone rioting for Black Lives before the media said, there's this thing now called Black Lives Matter, care about it.
Right.
Same with the Antifa stuff. Like,
Right.
it's crazy. And I've had so many conversations with, activists involved in these different pockets. And I always ask him the same thing. What were you doing for Black Lives before Black Lives Matter? And the
Mm.
answer is almost always fuck all. So whose cause are you really fighting for? One that you've come up with yourself, or are you
Right.
fighting for somebody else's thing?
Yeah. And
And that BLM stuff is just an example. This is an example of how the streams of information we get from wherever they come from manipulates the behavior of a mass population of people. I mean, these psyops was what made people excited to fight in wars. They made it a very big glamorous thing. You look at all
right.
these pictures and videos of people off on the trucks and trains to go fight in World War II. They're all fucking smiling. They're all like, hi
Right.
mum, hi mum, and you see them on the way back like, oh, just absolutely defeated. And because they didn't really know what they were going into properly, because the psyop was necessary to manipulate their perception on what the war is going to be like in order to get them to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that the same methodology is being used today to win political advantage,
Absolutely.
through these different programs or these different active, what's the word, different causes or whatever, that people
Yeah.
think they're fighting for, and people think they're coming up with their own opinions on it, but you're not,
Not
man.
really.
You're drinking the Kool-Aid for sure.
Exactly.
And again, that's something meditation allowed me to realize, was that actually I can actually choose what I'm
Right.
passionate about. And you can see the wood from the trees. However,
Exactly.
wouldn't you agree that ignorance is kind of bliss as well at the same time?
Oh, sometimes I wonder, like, wouldn't it just be easier to, like, be like, just I don't like to say people are asleep or sheep, but
Yeah, yeah.
life had a certain it was less it was there was it was less I felt less important, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah,
felt
yeah.
like things were a little it's hard to describe the words of it, but ignorance is bliss in a way, because there's a
Mm,
whole when I think what's dangerous about what you talked about, with in terms of people and, like, let's say social movements, the activists, and it's very dangerous to attach your identity to a social movement. I really think people, like, let's say you or I, when people have a sense of self, people have their own moral values and compass. That is what should be fueling social movements, not a social movement, and then people attaching their identity to the social movement's
Hmm.
values and causes,
It's
right?
identity politics, man, and
Exactly.
that's super dangerous. People forget that that was General Mao's technique to take over
Yeah.
China. That was Stalin's technique to do what he
Yeah.
done in the Far East. That was Hitler's technique to do what he
Exactly.
done with the Jews, and it's fucking happening now in Western
Yes.
society, in Western civilization. The sense of oneness has been absolutely ripped out of society in the
Yes.
West. And that was always something we had. That's always something we had going for us. And now all of a sudden, you see thousands of micro pockets of communities being created. Oh, I belong to this community and I belong to this community. And they all get given their own strongly held beliefs, and
Yes.
this weird kind of behaviors being bred amongst all of these individual communities of people, that they can't be wrong, they don't want to be wrong, and that they're not allowed to be friends or friendly with people who have a different opinion than them or have a different
Right.
perception. And different perceptions and opinions come from different experiences. You know, like one homosexual person may have not got a job because he was gay, and the other may never have felt oppressed at all. They're going to have
Right.
a different opinion on the same movement, and that's just because their
Exactly.
experience doesn't mean either one of them are wrong. And that's happening right now in Western civilization. I don't know if you agree. I don't feel like we've ever been so divided. I kind
We
of feel,
never have.
you know,
Never have.
or maybe it's just been talked about more. Maybe we were, but the internet just kind of just put it all out there on
Well,
the map. But I kind of feel like, you know, there's a lot of similarities between how these communist countries used to do all their nasty shit, and
mhm.
how things are starting to be shaped and happening over in the West now. You know, I'm glad no one knows where I live, because there's probably be a lynch mob on the way with that kind of view. I mean, I'm not saying, you know, socialism is just communism in disguise. I'm not saying that. um, you know, but
But
again,
right.
what meditation allows people to do is, it doesn't just give you clarity on your own individual life, like, oh yes, I can work better now. You can look at the world and go, fuck, this ain't right. This ain't
Right.
right at all.
You see the flaws. You see
Hmm.
what you're able to see all of the different perspectives
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
people are embodying and seeing where that division lies. And I 100% agree with you. We haven't been this divided. And you think about um, Trump, right? In America, he is the symbol of division. I view him as a symbol of division. And regardless of people don't even America, people don't even talk about his policies. Like people
Mm,
can think whatever they want. I'm not.
mm,
I'm personally a believer that Democrats, Republicans, we have two political parties in America. They work for
hmm,
the same people. Like it does. If you look at the actual policies,
hmm.
very little difference in terms of what
Yeah.
actually is done for the people. And he's become this sort of symbol of division. People don't talk. They talk about, oh, I want to go vote for Joe Biden because he's not Trump, or like,
Mm,
and then Trump is put on a pedestal by the other side. So it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's if you think
Mm,
about like George Bush, people didn't like George Bush in America, but there wasn't this fueled hatred. It
mm.
almost feels like, um,
But we know what fuels that hatred, don't we?
what what would you
Well,
say?
the mainstream media.
Oh, of course, of course,
Like you know that old engine that's been controlling the perception of the masses since forever, since that
yes,
little, well, you know, it was newspapers to begin with, but that's the same it's the
same
same
thing.
media. And then they
Yeah.
made a little mind control box in the corner. And you know what, if the do you believe, if the mainstream media wanted everybody to love Donald Trump instead, everybody would love him right now?
Yes. No doubt about it in my mind.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So by that very definition, people, whether you like him or not, people need to stop fucking watching it. Because
Yes.
if everybody would agree, everybody, if the mainstream media kept telling me right now, like chocolate hot dogs is good for you, okay, like it's got all these vitamins and minerals, it's a hot dog made of chocolate and you got like these
Hmm.
little sugary sprinkles on it, it's got all the minerals and vitamins you need. Can you imagine how many people are going to start eating that for breakfast, lunch, and
Right.
dinner? Right?
Exactly.
It's a
And the
thing.
thing is, we have like with the mainstream media, they own so many different media companies that they'll all put the same headline per se.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
say
yeah.
with the hot dog,
I've seen
chocolate
that.
hot dog. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
if every single site were to put that, then you get this perception that it's true, when in
Mhm.
reality, they're just pushing one narrative.
Yeah, yeah.
But our brains see it in all these different places. So we automatically assume, oh, this must be the truth.
Mm.
And it's hard to even fault the people for that, because
Mhm.
if 10 media companies who are secretly owned by one person all put out the same opinion, it's like, okay, well then that has to be the truth, because they're all
Mm.
reporting it. So it's a complete takeover of people's minds, people's perceptions. Perception
Mhm.
creates reality.
Yep.
That's really
Mhm.
that's just the truth.
Mhm.
So when you can sort of take control of your own perception, you can take control of your own reality.
Mm.
And that is the last thing the mainstream media, the large corporations,
Mhm.
the governments want, just
Yeah.
because a society of self-actualized individuals
Mhm.
has little need for people ruling over them,
Yeah.
because humanity, we are an extension of nature. If you think about nature, right? Nature
Mhm.
runs perfectly. It flows beautifully. It never misses a beat.
Mm.
Things happen as they must. And if we were to sort of return to our more of a natural state where we embody who we're supposed to be, we would begin to flow more harmoniously.
Well, we'd
And
integrate back with nature, right?
exactly. And we could still use technologies and things mindfully. That's not to say technology is bad, but we would be able to reestablish where is our place in the world? What are we
Mm.
supposed to be as a
Mm.
species?
Yeah.
Because I mean, if we don't do that, the earth itself is just gonna just be like, they're done. They're
Yeah,
detrimental to my own
exactly.
survival.
I
So
follow a lot of the work and read a lot of books of people like Dr. Joe Dispenza,
hmm,
Stephen Greer,
yeah,
watch a bit of Aaron Doughty stuff.
yeah,
And a lot of it's about sort of the science of consciousness, the origin of humans in reality and stuff like that, and our relationship with the earth. Okay.
yeah.
Now, if I neglected the earth, sorry, if I neglected my wife as much as we've all neglected the earth, I'd be divorced, bro. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And point to something right now in your environment, in your room, that's not man-made.
Ooh, oh boy.
There we go, man. What a horror show.
Oh,
Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? How's
yeah,
that cool? How on earth is that normal? Do you know what I
right.
mean? That's scary, right? Have you
That
ever
is
been
scary.
asked that before?
No, I
We
haven't thought of
have
it in that way.
we have this huge disconnect, okay, from earth and nature. And what has caused that is our information streams.
Yes.
Our value system has been hijacked, and we've been made to value things and status over our environment. Hence why no one gives a toss about our environment at the moment.
Yeah.
I imagine those fires are still burning quite rampantly in Amazon, but
Yep.
everyone's burning down buildings in random cities because, some guy of color got killed by a police officer,
Yep.
but your garden is burning.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
yeah, it's a very interesting kind of dynamic, and I never really had this outlook before I got into meditation.
Yeah.
I never even considered thinking about any of this stuff, like
Me neither.
any of it. And I remember when I first got into meditation, I hate it proper hard, man. I done a meditation course by a guy called Jeff Warren, wicked meditation teacher,
Hmm.
and he had this ADHD, a little bit like me, so it was like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. And it was a 30-day course. I finished it in 9 days, and I was like, man, I felt high. I felt high, man. I felt like I was
Yeah.
tripping, man. That whole week, and I was like, I just want to go outside. I want to
Yeah.
go outside. I don't want to be in these fucking buildings anymore. This is rubbish. I want to be outside, man. I used to take walks. I'd never take walks,
Yeah.
ever. I was just this like, my missus at the time would be like, "Do you want to go for a walk?" I'm like, "Nah, mate. Walks are stupid."
Right. I had that same
And
shift. Yep.
really, did you really? Yeah, yeah. and
Yeah.
and it's like it's a thing. It's a real change that happens, and I want to see it happen on a global scale, at least in my lifetime.
Oh, absolutely. And I actually, the data is showing people are leaving cities at almost rapid numbers in the
Really.
US. So I wonder, I mean, maybe it's not all contributed to maybe a return, a reconnection with nature, but I think people are realizing the falsity and the you
It's a
know the
circus, man.
yeah,
It's a circus.
they
I,
realize
I,
what's going on there, and
hmm?
it's not real.
I strongly believe, and I've been saying this for a long time now, I believe that one day the biggest cities in America and the UK will be ticket only, but like a theme park, right? And they
Yes,
pretty much are already theme parks. If you go to Disneyland or Orlando Studios in Florida, which I've been, have you been there?
I've been to Disneyland. I haven't been to I've been to the
Wild
one in
place.
California, not in Orlando.
Fine, fine, fine. If you go there, what do you do? Right, you walk around and you'll go on some rides, woo,
Yeah.
and stuff, and then you go to a restaurant and eat,
Yep.
and you go on some more rides again, and you go to a bar and drink. Yeah,
Yep.
that's the same as every city, except for don't go on rides
Yep.
because it's the same.
Yeah.
It's the same. You these big cities and theme parks, all these, but not these big towns and cities, these huge concrete jungles are just theme parks without rides.
Exactly.
That's it.
Seriously. I agree. I actually agree with you completely. It's like there's nothing that is like real about it. Like there's nothing that like I lived in Boston, Massachusetts for 5 years, right? I think I lived there for 5 years. I went to college there, and it's so isolating to like your like I didn't even realize how disconnected and isolated I felt. Like I learned meditation, like that's where I started meditating. In my last year of living there, I started meditating, and I lived right near this pond. I would go out by the pond every single day because I was like, I need to be outside. I can't do this like the city
Mm,
life. Like it's just there's nothing about it that and I think the big reason why we see an increase in mental illness is because people are living they're like boxed into these cities.
mm,
It's there's nothing real about it
mm.
in any way, shape, or form. There's a reason there's no wildlife in cities, like
Yeah,
you know.
exactly. It doesn't work. I went from this guy, I was like, I want to move to London, big
Mm.
business. Most of my clients are there. I want the city center apartment. And then, I got into meditation, and now I just want a bit of land and grow my own potatoes. It's fine.
Same.
It's weird, man. It's so weird.
Exactly. I had this idea of I wanted to move to LA and like go out to California and live the LA experience. And
Mm,
now I'm just like, why would I want to do that? I
mm,
just don't see
mm,
and to each their own. If
mm,
you want to go to a city and grow a business and live that sort of lifestyle, I just I don't think it's very difficult to balance your your need, because I think humans have a distinct need to be in nature and
mm,
to be surrounded by life, because nature's alive, trees are alive.
mm.
There's you could go in depth about how forests, there's this great book, The Secret Life of
I'm
Trees.
reading it right now. I'm on chapter 4.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah, mate. Mate, it's incredible to
It's a
learn how,
fantastic
mate.
book.
What's even better about the way in which that they're their net social network that trees have.
Yeah.
I love that fungi. They're like the mainstream media for the trees, and they like transmit bits and news to each
Right.
tree. Oh, it's incredible, man. What a book.
And I feel like we can very much, I've made this analogy a couple times and I like it. Like humans, the human species we have a lot of similarities with trees. I think if
Mm,
we were to return to a more natural state, you know, I don't know if you've gotten to the point of the book. It talks about how they give nutrients through the root systems. Like if
yeah,
there is a tree that is dying,
it
they
helps
will
them.
they'll all send nutrients to it to
Mm,
support it. Like I think
yeah.
humans innately are like that. We
Mm,
have, we look at empathy, we look at
mm,
being able to provide for others. I
mm,
think if we were to be more in touch with ourselves, with each
yeah.
other, with nature, we would have those similar qualities.
Yeah.
So
Well, look, I mean, like the sense of community is dying a little bit,
yeah,
in family values in Western civilization. I mean, if
yes,
you look at how things used to be a long time ago, you'd have one family home,
hmm,
you'd stay, you'd look after your elders, and the men would go out and they'd hunt and provide and come home, and it was this huge self kind of family-based community, because you're
Yeah.
spending time with people that closely match your vibrational frequency that you live on. I mean, these guys are
Yeah.
the closest thing to being you. And now, man, you're out the house at 18. You got to get your own house. You got to do like, which is, there's value in that. There's value in independence.
Of
However,
course.
like it's been taken this like huge step so far, where everyone individually in a family need to go off and have all of the same things,
Right.
and individually, and not bother with each other anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And we're trained to like be like that, and
Yeah.
when really we should all be sticking together, helping each other. And that's kind of like that's a very strange concept to see from my research in history, and how human beings used to primarily live, and how we socially used to live and support each other. And
Right.
now it's like we've never been so apart and distant from one another.
Right. And it's interesting how that is, even though we live in a day and age where you can
Mhm.
literally go on your phone or your
Mm.
computer and
Yeah.
connect with anybody in the world
But I
at the
think that's part
same
of the
time.
problem. That's part of the
Yeah.
problem, because it's too easy. It's like, well, I don't need to go see so and so, because I'll just send
I
them
can
a thumbs up.
Yeah, exactly. Let me react to this thing.
Yeah.
Just put a little, we're in. So we're all so connected through this like electronic, like fake reality,
Mm.
which is the media is not reality.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
online world is not
yeah.
reality.
How many times have you asked somebody, what do you want for your birthday? And they've gone, no, mate, just leave a little message on my wall, mate.
Yeah,
Just post on my Facebook wall,
just
mate. You
post
got
on
this
the
covered.
Facebook. Exactly. I deleted my Facebook account about 2 years ago, and one of the things that I actually am glad I don't have happen on my birthday anymore is people writing happy birthday on
I
my Facebook
know.
wall.
Ah,
Now nobody knows when it's my birthday, which is fine. It's like I felt like a lot of those happy birthdays were sort of just like artificial, like, oh, it's Evan's birthday, I'm
well, they are.
obligated to go,
You can
you know.
literally click a button and it's done for you now. You don't have to type it out. Like
Uh,
LinkedIn. Oh, I actually hate it. That is, it's ego mania on LinkedIn.
Yep.
But anyway, like someone gets a new job, you can just click a button, and
Congratulations.
yeah, and just automatically just done. It's almost like our social interactions are being delegated to artificial intelligence. This is the
Yeah,
beginning,
it is.
and because soon it's going to be thought based.
Which
You
is,
think about
yeah.
sending someone a message and it will happen, or think about an appointment and it will happen. And
And that scares me. That's actually it's funny you mentioned that, because that's something I I think I watched a video about that pretty much right before we got on the podcast, about
right,
thought-based artificial intelligence.
yeah,
And
okay.
have
To
you
go into like
read
the interface and stuff they're planning with
yes.
the brain. Yeah.
Have you read 1984 by
Uh,
George
George
Orwell?
Orwell. No, I have. Well, I mean, I say I haven't read it. Only memes.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. I mean, it's all over called like pop, like it's all over the internet. Like there's most people know it, but
Yeah.
I just finished reading it about 2 weeks ago or so, and it's the similarities I see in this Orwellian
Mm-hmm.
society that's laid out in this dystopian future they talk about.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about thought control. It's all about perception control.
Mm-hmm.
And with artificial intelligence, they want to, if they want to sort of link the brain with AI, well, what's to stop the AI from completely taking over your
Mm-hmm.
individual thoughts? And then all of a sudden, you're not you are AI.
Yeah.
So it's what scares me about that is the potential for a complete extinction of human thought as we know it.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like when you talk about most people, if you talk about that with them, they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what are what weed strain are you smoking? Like, I
Yeah, of
kind of
course.
want that. Like, but it's,
Well, you're right. We'd be daft to think that
what is the,
technology. If we looked back at a healthcare system 70 years ago,
yeah,
I mean, it was terrible in
yeah,
comparison to today. And if you had shown somebody a smartphone 60 years ago, they'd have beat you up, thinking you were some
yeah,
kind of weird witchcraft, devil worshipping black magic crazy
yeah.
dude. And so, if we look forward from now, I think it's probably pretty conceivable that this technology will exist.
Oh, no doubt
However,
about it.
a bit of hope. I don't know if you've read it, but I recommend a book called Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza.
I know of it. I
And
have not read it.
Yeah, well, you are, if you don't read it, you are proactively hurting yourself. It's
Okay,
incredible.
then.
You're gonna absolutely love it. Yeah, like you need to read it, and after you read it, we need another podcast. We need a
Okay,
debrief, a public
let's do it.
debrief. But anyway, they get his research team teams up with the Heart Math Institute, and in America, where they do a bunch of like experiments based on the science of consciousness and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And they've done loads of it, tons of it. And one thing they've done is, do you know much about the random number generator program across the world? It's a way in
Not
which
entirely.
global consciousness is being measured through like global coherent emotion. So
Oh,
essentially,
okay.
there are tons of centers, random number generators all over the world,
Mhm.
all over it, like hundreds.
Oh, I think I
And
have heard about
yeah,
this.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And they measure they monitor it closely, all these random numbers just triggering, and then big worldwide events happen. 9/11, big ass tsunamis, Trump winning the election,
Hmm.
COVID is the latest one, and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, there's this huge synchronization on these random number generators spitting out the same stuff from all over the world.
Mm.
It's measuring global consciousness, which, I mean, the Schumann resonance has been doing for a long time anyway with the electromagnetic field of the Earth. It's real, like, proven stuff. And
Right.
another experiment they'd done was they made a random robot. Um, Before I actually tell you this, the premise of the book is you put your thought is where you put your energy. If your perception creates your reality, then there you go.
Right.
And that's the basics of quantum physics, right? They
Right.
can only observe quarks or atoms when they're observing them. They didn't exist when they weren't looking. And
Right.
they done an experiment to prove this, where they made a robot which would randomly move in just any direction,
Hmm.
and it filled the space up perfectly. They tracked where it went, over a couple of hours, and it filled the box up perfectly. And then they hatched a few like new chicks, basically. And then there's
Okay.
this, I can't remember the technical term for it, but there is when chicks hatch, the first thing they see, it's their mother, and they'll latch
Oh, okay.
onto it and follow it and stuff like that. So they hatched it next to this robot, and these chicks thought the robot was their mother.
Mm.
And the random robot goes off, and the chicks follow it for ages. And they're following, and they map where the robot goes, and the robot moves evenly throughout. And then they take the chicks out of the arena and put it next to the robot.
Hmm.
And they're trying to get to the robot because it's their mother, and the robot just goes off on its own again, for
Okay.
hours, going off. And they measured where the robot had been, and it spent the vast majority of its time on the side next to where the chicks were, trying to get
Mm.
to it. Because where you put your thoughts is where you put your energy. Every single being on this planet is consciousness, the same consciousness as
Yeah.
us. We are one, and all that woo-woo shit, right? And they've been doing tons of experiments like this. And that's where an awful lot of guys, futurologists and technologists looking at the future of AI, the reason in which they're not too worried is our consciousness is actually the failsafe for the misuse for AI. It's
Mm.
as a global consciousness. And it sounds like wacky as piss to a lot of people, as you can imagine, right? I mean,
Of course.
but unfortunately, the thing that has made people not believe in this stuff is because they've been fed a bunch of fictional movies and series
Yeah.
based on this stuff to make people not believe in it. That's
Yeah.
the original psyop.
Right.
You want people not to believe in something, make a fucking movie about it. They'll
Make
never
it
believe it
science
then.
fiction. Make it look
Exactly.
just
Exactly.
completely out of the left. Yeah.
Exactly. There will be people that doesn't know anything about meditation or spiritualism. They'll watch this podcast and they'll go, these motherfuckers need to stop watching The Matrix.
Yeah. Exactly. 100%.
And that's what happens. And there's been loads of consciousness based experiments like this. So if for anyone worried about the big AI takeover, there is this fail safe, fingers crossed, who knows, but there have been lots of experiments doing it. I like to believe, and I believe there is, that for all of the work and all of the people that are researching into AI, all of its uses, there are almost always an opposing force of people trying to, come up with the answers on the other side, as a failsafe.
Right.
Um, but it's really interesting. I really recommend that book, man. Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe
Becoming
Dispenza
super.
is super
I
interesting.
now that's gonna be. I was about to say I'm gonna add it to my Amazon cart, but I don't have Amazon, so I'm gonna add it to wherever I can buy books online.
I downloaded it on just Amazon Kindle. I read it on my phone. I read books on my phone.
Oh, okay.
Because the thing is, like, there's this huge phone addiction going on. It's
There
a
is.
nightmare, man. It's a nightmare. But I'm like, hold up. I mean, if I just read on my phone, I can make a good
That's
habit
good
of picking it up.
usage. It's
Yeah,
good
yeah, yeah,
usage of the phone.
yeah. However, there is Becoming Supernatural is an audiobook as well. So if you're
Oh,
feeling
okay.
super
I like.
lazy, then
Well, I used to be very lazy, so I love to read I love to pick up books and just read. Like,
mm,
there's something very rewarding about reading a physical book to
I
me.
know what you
But
mean.
but the thing is, I have a lot of books that I buy and then I haven't started. But so it's I'm almost more prone to read when it's on my like phone or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
computer. So like I've found the ones that I do
Mm,
download online, I
mm,
actually read because I'm on my phone. I'm like, oh, I want to read a little
mm.
bit of, the book. So
So outside of the world being absolutely messed up, as we've come
yeah.
to that conclusion, what's your favorite meditation technique? Like, what's your go-to?
Hmm, that's a fantastic question. I
I
mean,
know for some a very intimate question as well.
it is. And I would say a big thing for me, what really makes me feel fulfilled and sort of working towards my higher purpose, is meditations that are specifically geared towards not just gratitude, but love and compassion and opening the heart to, whatever the world is going to throw at me. Like,
Mm,
just taking things in from a place of love and
yeah.
just so I would say that is almost sort of like a soft spot. Like, I
Mm,
very much like this morning I did a meditation. I don't know if you've heard of twin heart meditation. It's like um, I almost can't even describe it because it's such a beautiful guided meditation that was developed. I'm forgetting on
mm,
the master's name, but if you look up twin heart meditation, it's
mm-hmm.
by Stephen Coe, and he's a fantastic meditation teacher. And what it does is you really put yourself into a space of loving compassion for the world, for other people, for circumstance as it be. And for me, that is where I find myself the most, like me, the most
Mm.
productive, the most, um, you know,
Well, it creates a certain emotional state which makes us far more productive with our thoughts.
exactly,
Um,
exactly.
I don't want to sort of spoil this new book you've just discovered.
Please,
Um,
you can.
but
It's fine.
the premise is that there's this thought loop sequence that
Mm,
happens where your conscious brain will have a thought, and let's say
mhm.
it's a negative thought. So I don't
Yeah.
know, you worry about your boss being a nuisance, right? He's being mean. And that thought, conscious thought, is so. Let me start again. Basically, the vocabulary of your brain
Mm,
is your thoughts, and the
right.
vocabulary of your body is emotions.
Mm,
And so your thought, you have a thought, a negative thought about your boss, it sucks. That tells your subconscious, which is just your brain.
yeah.
This is your thought. Create a feeling of depression and
Right.
anxiety, right? And then your subconscious, which is your body, then tells your back to your brain, your consciousness, this is how you're feeling, have more thoughts to corroborate with how you feel. So then you start worrying about what a pain in the arse your wife is, and then the
Mhm.
sequence continues. And that's called being stuck in a rut. And that's how people just spiral down, 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 down. And over a long period of time, when you're living a life like that, that's when depression and anxiety hits in, and these doctors start shoving pills down your throat.
Right.
And the why gratitude practice in meditation, and why I think gratitude meditations is also my go-to and my favorite, is that you're consciously jumping in and breaking that negative thought loop sequence.
Yes.
By with gratitude practice, you're bringing that thought to your consciousness, and your consciousness is telling your body you are feeling grateful. And then
Yes.
that creates a chemical reaction in your body. Cortisol level drops, dopamine,
Yes.
serotonin, all the spicy hormones start getting created, and then your subconscious, your body, that tells your consciousness, you're feeling pretty good. Have more thoughts, man. Let's match this. Let's have some more of this good stuff. And you're like,
Yes.
actually, yeah, life's pretty good, man. My job's pretty sick. It pays well. And then you know the loop sequence continues, and that can really get you in a good state of mind to live a more fruitful, happy, more
Exactly.
peaceful life.
And
This isn't being taught
right.
anywhere except
No.
for, you know, the dark corners of the internet.
Unfortunately. And just to speak like from personal experience, when I go in, like for example, doing the twin heart meditation this morning and
Mm.
feeling so full of love and compassion, like the rest of my day leading up to, even coming on the podcast, I feel great. Like I feel like my interactions with people, like went and got a workout in this morning, and my interactions with people at the gym, I found when I come in from a place of gratitude and love, like it impacts the people around me because
Yeah, of course.
they build off of that. Like they sort of
Mm.
see where I am, and everybody wants to feel good. Like
Yeah.
everybody
Yeah.
wants like,
Mm.
so that's going to create positive interactions. So, if the example you made of your boss driving you crazy, like if you go into work feeling full of gratitude,
Mm.
maybe your boss is not going to drive you crazy because you're in a good state, and maybe that puts them in a good
Yeah.
state. And so it
Like
seems like
attracts like. That's just how it
exactly.
is, man. Like attracts like. And you know, to not make this another law of attraction podcast, I do believe, you know, that you can attract things in your life through, you know, living in a particular state of mind. And
Yes.
I've seen it happen. It's happened to me. It's happened to all of my close friends now. And you know, the concept is actually extremely, extremely similar to almost every single religion out there.
Yeah.
It's just saturated with metaphor
Yes.
instead, you know. And I hope that this will become mainstream information one day. And the thing is, years ago, years ago, when people would say, you know, we need to think positively and create more positive emotions, and you know, more better things will happen in our life, it's like, what the fuck, that's just mystical, you can't prove it.
Right.
Now scientists are literally measuring the electromagnetic field around our bodies, measuring the vibrational frequency in the states of people in different emotional states. They're measuring people who are angry, it's a different frequency. They're
Right.
measuring people who are looking at like soft porn and they're being lustful, super low frequency. And then they've actually measuring the frequencies of gratitude and love and appreciation, and it's a super high frequency, and that changes your brain waves to theta and delta, so we can stop being these beta dwelling, you know,
Yeah.
brain users. And it's a thing now. If anybody needed proof for meditation, just
It's there.
Google what happens in your damn brain when you meditate, and then tell me it's not for you. All right, you
Exactly.
deserve to be exactly where you are after that. If you, if,
100%.
you know, and it's a you know, it was not going to be an easy process. You know, getting people to. If you came to me 7 years ago and said, Jack, you're being very angry, you know, you're talking to people not very nicely, just
Yeah.
get into meditation, man. I'd have told you to jog on, you know. So I
Right.
get it. You
100%.
like, I understand it. And, you know, I want to know how, you know, this can be put on the mainstream,
You
and
know,
made acceptable and not weak. Men are the issue, man.
yeah.
Fuck, man, we
Ego.
suck.
We get very caught in the idea that we need to be these like dominant like
Yeah.
we're caught in our egos. And
Yeah. Even
you know,
God's a dude, right? What's that all about?
yeah, like seriously though. But I feel like it, if you can phrase it in a sense of exploration and autonomy, and
Mm,
even people who have that super built up ego defense of wanting to be like in control, and meditation
mm,
represents
mm,
almost sort of a lack of control, you can phrase it in a way of, this is going to, like, you can explore meditation in your own way, and you can explore it and have your own
mm,
experiences in learning to, you know I even tell people that you can find so many different benefits to meditation, but I don't necessarily myself, like, I don't need I don't even need all the confirmation anymore.
Mm,
I know myself well enough now to know how I feel when I meditate. And
yeah.
I think, go in and just try and notice how you feel. And that, I think people need to trust their inner experience a little bit more.
Yeah.
Like we're told not to value what goes on inside, how we feel, our own emotions.
Mm,
What is reality like for us? Like that's sort of been thrown to the side. So I get people to explore and trust themselves, and I
mm,
think that's going to get people to try it and bring it to the mainstream.
mm,
With the mainstream, it takes time for anything to break into it. Like the mainstream is just basically what is going on at the collective level,
mm.
and so the more people who individually take on this journey, because it has to be an individual journey, you
Yeah.
know, I mean, you can have mass meditations where a bunch of people meditate at the same time in classes, but each person in that meditation is going to have their own individual journey.
Mm,
So just the more people who keep doing it, eventually it will show up and resonate on a collective level. So
mm,
I mean, I really feel like it's only a matter of time.
mm.
Um,
Well, global
because
coherence is being measured,
yeah,
and it's on the rise.
right.
Apparently, I don't know too much about that science. I need to do a bit more research, but it's on the up. But what scares me, it doesn't really scare me. Nothing really scares me anymore. But what I find interesting is that when you look at the history of civilizations who have gone
Mhm.
down that spiritual path of enlightenment, like globally,
Mhm.
they just seem to get wiped out at some point.
Right.
The Romans will come in, just absolutely decimate them, and then there'll be another crusade instead. Like
Mhm.
what happens when we wake up again? You know?
Right. And that's and that it's history tends to repeat itself, right?
Yeah,
And
it's got a habit. Yeah.
we talked about that. So I guess it sort of almost needs to be a global synchronistic
Mm, mm,
movement. However, I do think there's value in the differences in individuals and the differences in culture. So when you talk about global movements, I think what causes people to fear that and drive like not want that is the fact that they think their culture, they think that their identity is at risk, right?
mm,
That's why people are so against, like you mentioned, immigration earlier. Like it's almost like it puts your culture at risk.
mm,
But I think if you can learn, like we teach people to have, I don't know if pride's the right word, but recognize and embrace your individuality and what makes you you and your
mm-hmm,
upbringing and the
mm-hmm,
uniqueness of cultures, and then just embrace all other cultures, like
mm,
accept those other cultures, but approach them from a place of peace and inner peace and mindfulness. And I think that is what allows you to, the idea of oneness, seeing yourself in another person regardless of who they are and their
mm,
differences, and you can kind of realize that culture is just what you're born into.
mm,
So, but innately, we are all the same. So we come from the same source,
mm,
whatever you want to call source, So I, I think there's like a need for the balance of of individual identity, individualism, but also the willingness to embrace what is unknown and what is different about
yeah.
others. So,
And so really, the bottom line is people need to give less of a fuck.
yes.
I mean, because that's what that is, isn't it? I mean, if people didn't care who they were and who they are and who everyone else is, they'd just be like, fucking sweet. But
Yeah.
because, someone owns guns and you don't, you're pissed at them because someone, thinks dicks taste nice, you don't like them, and vice versa. Like,
Right.
what's that all about then? But if people just didn't care,
Yeah.
and didn't give any agency to that, then we'd all begin to, become one again and
Exactly.
accept and be more compassionate. And more importantly, be more interested in other people. Like,
Yes.
no one's interested in hearing other people's stuff anymore, and unless it's going to be reaffirming their beliefs,
Right. We put ourselves
and
in an echo chamber of what we want to hear.
of course, man, confirmation bias is, it's a real problem at the moment because
Oh,
people
yes.
find it way too rewarding to be right nowadays. you
Yep.
know, when you need to be failing fast.
Yeah.
That's how evolution is done. You think, like, you look at nature when you know, when animals evolve over years, right?
Yeah.
You know, they don't just evolve different abilities without having a reason to. You're like, okay, right, you know, I've spent 500 years now being bitten in the fucking back, so I'm gonna grow a shell now. You know,
Right.
like these traumas and stuff like make you stronger, like as you go, and it's the same thing. You know, being wrong
Absolutely.
is the same process, and it can be rewarding because then you learn. But at the moment, this cancel culture, confirmation bias paradigm that's being shoved in everybody's face is preventing everybody from evolving,
Yeah.
and that's terrifying.
Absolutely. No, I agree 100%. And like it just gets into that idea of a willingness to grow, a growth mindset, and putting it in the perspective of evolution. That's something I've thought about a lot. Like we are meant
Mm,
to continually grow, to
mm,
continually evolve, to continually find ways to become better, because
mm,
that is what the process of evolution is.
mm,
It's exactly what, Charles Darwin laid out in his theory, and it perfectly explains how we've come to evolve from single cell organisms, right? I
mm,
mean, that's literally what we were at one point, if looking back at the course of life on
mm,
Earth. So you constantly have to be willing to embrace
mm,
that your belief systems might not be beneficial. They might not be right. I
mm,
mean, everybody has elements of truth within their perspective, but
mm,
you need to sort of be willing to acknowledge that there are other perspectives and grow and learn from it.
mm,
And I don't know, willingness to be wrong. Like I love being wrong. I love when people put me in my place because I'm like,
mm.
all right, I can grow
Yeah,
from that. I can learn from
man,
that.
I used to hate it. I was like that. I mean, that was kind of like the cause of my anger problems, really.
Hmm.
On reflection,
Yeah.
I couldn't be wrong, man. I had to always be right, no matter what. You know,
Hmm.
it was like a fear of being wrong. You know, and that manifested in itself as anger and being an
Hmm.
asshole. You know, and you know, I would even probably kind of really know I was wrong sometimes as well. And I would
Yeah.
still just won't be having it. Now I just feel like I learn, you know, it's that cringy meme. You either win or you learn. And
Ah,
the faster we fail, the faster we learn. And
exactly.
now, you know, I kind of it feels rewarding to be wrong because I feel like I'm evolving, I'm changing, I'm adapting to the information that I thought I was, you know, so strongly aligned to that I'm not anymore. And that's an element of freedom. You know,
Absolutely.
there's an element of like, "Ooh, this feels good," and I no longer give a fuck because I'm probably wrong again. So, like, I'm
100%.
I'm not going to have this strongly held opinion anymore. Okay, what would the world look like, Evan,
Yeah.
if like you're a genie, right? Just to say
Okay.
you're a genie, fuck, a real
All right. I
handsome
love it. I
genie,
love
okay?
it. I'll take it.
And with the click of your fingers, everybody on the planet will lose every single one of their strongly held opinions.
Ooh.
What would the world look like?
I think there would be, at first, there would be a scramble, a lot of chaos, because when we look at what's going on at the collective level right
Mm,
now
mm,
with all the division, with all the cancel culture, people are very, very, very attached to what they believe in.
mm-hmm.
So at first, anytime they just lose it. Now, so do they realize they've lost it? Do
Um,
so I would
it's a good question.
suppose it depends on how they lose it, but
Yeah.
maybe if they lose it in a way where they're proven
Mm,
wrong and they have to deal with the fact that, okay, this belief system no longer benefits me. I
mm,
think at first people would be really upset. There might be a lot of chaos, but
yeah.
people would get the experience of that growth, that
Yeah.
change.
A
So
feeling of brand new, you know, like
right.
I guess it's kind of like what path to an awakening somebody chooses. They
Yeah.
either hammer psychedelic drugs or they meditate for a year. You know,
Yes.
one route is really going to shake your world, right?
Yeah.
And
Been on both of those paths.
yeah,
So it's
exactly. Prepare for a long old dark night. Okay.
yes.
Or of course, you know, you just meditate and slowly wake up, enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the kind of the difference. If everybody lost all of their strongly held beliefs over a longer period of time, it would be a smoother path. But I
Although
feel,
even within that, you still have your conflict. You still have your chaos that comes up. So
yeah, yeah,
it's almost easier to, I think, on that long path to make come up with reasons to not awaken and continue the journey. Like
yeah, yeah,
there's a lot more of what you could perceive as setbacks, because, well, not set I wouldn't call it setback, but there's a
mm,
lot more growth in trials and tribulations. I
mm,
like to compare it to the hero's journey,
yeah,
the archetype,
yeah, yeah.
it's
I'm familiar. Yeah, yeah.
so you go along and you're constantly tested, you're constantly learning and growing, and eventually you reach this stage of, I really think anyone who calls himself enlightened is, full of shit. They
Just
probably should
spiritual
avoid.
ego.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
Or
you
maybe,
reach
or is that our ego talking? One day, like, we might become properly enlightened and we're like, ooh, we gone fucked up.
right, yeah. I'm coming from a place of judgment when I say that. So, but you reach this point where you realize the growth in the journey, and you
Mm,
can embrace
mm,
that more fully. So, but then again, with if you just pop psychedelics and you have that trip, you still go
mm.
through the hero's journey. It's
Yeah.
just accelerated.
Yeah. In a split second.
Yeah.
Oh, Evan, listen, I could talk to you forever.
I was just thinking that.
However, it is Fire Friday. Now, it's something I do with my friends. We meet up every
Yes.
single Friday. We have a fire on the beach. And funny
Oh,
enough, we
wonderful.
we meditate, and like we do like gratitude practice shit together, and then we just talk about
Phenomenal.
crap. Yeah, man, it's the best day of the week for sure. Um so yeah, I'm gonna head down and
All
meet the
right,
lads.
man.
It's been an amazing podcast. I really appreciate you.
Absolutely.
You've got some very good information. You've clearly got a very good head on your shoulders. I'm really happy for you having found meditation so young. I really wish I did it 24, or 21, or however old you are.
Yeah. 24
And
now.
yeah, and look, keep up with the podcast. If you're ever looking for um a podcast guest to come on
I
your
was about to
show
say.
and chat maximum amounts of crap. Who knows, man? Let's do a conspiracy theory episode. Who knows?
I was about to say, man, like I would love to have you on my show. Like we could have kept going and going and going.
Yeah,
So
oh no, I could have been there for 2 hours straight up, but I need to eat. I'm gonna pass out.
yes, don't
I'm gonna
faint.
I'm gonna try and
What?
catch my baby as well before he goes to bed.
Mm,
I've got a 6-month-old as well, so
all
that kind
right.
of changes your life as well, man.
I'm sure. I'm
They're
sure. I can only
wild,
imagine.
wild times. So yeah, man, thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate you, and we'll speak again.
All right. That sounds good, brother.
Cheers,
Thanks so
man.
much for having me on.
Bye, dude.
All right. See ya.